But at its peak, I could generate 6 to 7K on Fiverr.
My guest today has done many side hustles, and that's why I brought him on board to discuss a bit on what you can try to build your first 10,000 or first 100,000. So JJ, thank you for joining today's discussion.
Thank you for having me, Josh.
I know you've tried a lot of side hustles. Fiverr, that's one thing I took notice of.
Right.
So I'd like to invite you to share a bit on your first one and maybe which is your most successful. So go ahead, let us know.
I think just now I was sharing you offline, off the camera, that my life is a freaking side hustle, man. Ever since I was like 15, 16 years old, I think I had a goal in life, which is to not work in a cubicle. Not that there's anything wrong with working in a cubicle, but my personality is very outgoing and I don't like boring. One of the things that I tell my friends is that I like exciting jobs. Trying different things. These days, the term seems to be known as like side hustles. Trying different things, trying to build things that add value to people seem to be what I gravitate to. So I've tried a lot of things over the years, and thankfully or unfortunately, I've never had the pleasure of having a full-time job, sitting in a cubicle. I've made my life with a whole bunch of, I guess what you call side hustles. I started in the music industry, doing a lot of stuff in music, performing, working to kind of share original music, produce original music, and I was doing that for a long time, and a whole bunch of other stuff that came with that. So my first few side hustles was just being an intern. Just being an intern for multiple companies at the same time. And the purpose of that was to learn about the industry so that I can find the blueprint, the pathway to potentially succeed in that industry. Like at that time was music. And along the way I started at 16, now I'm 28, in my, 12 years. I started a whole bunch of random business. I tried all the things that, all your online gurus tell you to try, like Shopify, dropshipping, option trading, crypto, Etsy, Pinterest, Redbubble, and a whole bunch of stuff. I started like an online music teaching thing. I started a sunglasses business, like a brick and mortar sunglasses business where we consign sunglasses to, different departmental stores, Takashimaya and vice versa. I started a company that helps people write resumes because at some point I realized actually I'm pretty good at that. So I got a friend who was in HR, and we started this service to help people refine their resumes, to help them get interviews and things like that. A whole bunch of stuff. And along the way, I also started like one of the more successful ones that I've done over the years. So I've started many failed businesses. Some of these that I've named are some of them. Started like a wedding music company, which failed. Sunglasses company failed. And many things failed. I think one of the few more successful side hustles would be like Fiverr, right? Which I still continue to do. I started doing this Fiverr thing in 2019, during the 2020 actually, in the height of COVID, where I can't go out to do my business and things like that. And I dove really, really deep into like the algorithms. Every time I start something, I will always try to. My objective is not really to make a lot of money from it. It's just to learn the process and I think that's my hobby. That's my goal, is to just to learn shit, whatever I can learn. So I dove like really, really deep into the process and the algorithm, like SEO on Fiverr. How do you kind of like get traffic to your gig on Fiverr and vice versa? And I was quite lucky that years of trying kind of allow me to operate in a way that in the process of elimination, which allows that certain things that I do to do better than others. Like Fiverr is just one of them.
Can I ask a bit more on the Fiverr portion?
Yeah.
I've seen like 1,000+ reviews.
Yeah, I'm quite lucky lah. Yeah.
That is awesome. I mean, it's like, I use Fiverr also. I realize most have a couple of reviews and stuff, but you have 1,000.
Right.
And that validation would make any purchaser go to you very quickly. So what is the secret behind Fiverr? How to do it well? What is your own insights on it?
I think the secret is to understand, bottom line is there's a lot of hard work, right? And it's not just about casting the net as wide as possible, but to be a little bit more focused on your approach, right? Like the process of elimination, you try this, does that work? You try that, does that work? And vice versa. And I think very similar to yourself, the bottom line in everything that we do, the focus should be to be adding value to people. So whether it's Fiverr or the other things that I do, be it in like music production, content production, or real estate and things that I dabble with, I think the focus that I try to remind myself to keep in mind is that everything that I do, everything that we do, the focus should be to add value to people. Because when you put value on the table, the money will come over time. We don't have to worry. And like I have proven this to myself multiple times in my short 12 years of trying to figure out my life and my career, that if you chase the dollar sign, if you chase the money, things rarely work out, for me at least, in my personal experience. But if you chase understanding value and what value you can put on the table, the money will come eventually. The only question is how long it takes and how much you make.
But someone doing side hustles, maybe they are hoping to save up more money quickly. Maybe they are looking to pay bills. They need that $500 or $1,000 a month. The whole objective of side hustle is to bring that money in. Right?
Absolutely. I think it's a balance.
Okay.
Right? It's a balance. I think, kind of like what we talked about previously, which is that before we even talk about scalability and generating more income, are we sustainable to begin with? And if we have something that we are doing that is somewhat sustainable, then we can look at growth. We can look at, we don't have that kind of pressure on ourselves that our side hustle needs to work out. And we focus a lot more on the process. And every time a business fails, I've started like a bazillion failed businesses. Like, like I register businesses on Accra, then I close them. I register businesses on Accra, I close them. It's like the amount of times I've done that, I know the process. I can brief the process already. And I think if we focus a lot on the success of the business, burnout will always happen. It has happened to me so many times. And over the years, I've learned that, as cliche as it sounds, like failure is the path to success. And I wouldn't consider myself a successful person, but in many ways, I'm sustainable. Through my side hustles, through like my jobs and the things that I do that hopefully add value to people, I managed to buy my HDB, I managed to buy my BTO, I managed to pay for my wedding, I managed to, go for a nice honeymoon with my wife, I managed to basically pay for all the things that I need to pay for. And I think that is the rewarding part.
Can we dig a bit on the Fiverr? How much can a project, because my assumption is, if Fiverr, we are competing against people who are based overseas who will charge way lower rates. I'm also trying to think, how much can be made? Maybe some rough figures. So anyone, student-wise, maybe wants to provide a service,
right,
very creative, they can look to follow your path.
I think the bottom line, before we even talked about the money, is what is your value that you're contributing to the platform? And I mean, this is all the regular business advice. Like, what is your USP? But what is the value that you're bringing to the table? And most importantly, how can you communicate that value? I think in most businesses we do, whether it's Fiverr, freelance, or whatever businesses, I think people can figure out their USP. People can figure out the value. I think what most people struggle with, myself included, is to articulate and communicate that value in its utmost purity to your client, to your customer. I think that is the challenge, and that is the refining process. To for example, video editing is something that is like huge on Fiverr, right? Everybody edits videos, and video editing is different people have different levels of expertise in that. And if you are going to be a new seller on Fiverr amongst all the hundreds of thousands of other people that edits videos, what is your USP? And how can you communicate it to people in 150 words and a video, right? I think that is the challenge. But in terms of the earnings, and if we focus on that, right, the earnings will come over time. Of course, there are a whole bunch of other tips and tricks on Fiverr, like for example, learning how to word, like the keyword, like, keyword research, like same for ranking on SEO, Google, studying your competition, like what is this person doing right? And how are they getting their clients, and to kind of be competitive in a way that you're not killing off the competition, but you are doing better than them in a way that you're providing a value that this other person is not providing. The value will determine how much money you can make.
So if I hear correctly, if you have a niche that you can communicate your value, then you can stand out, then you can bring on customers.
Something like that. And what I always tell, so I teach also, right? So one of the things that I always tell my students is that a lot of people say like, oh, I want to do this, but there's so much competition and things like that. So I like to think of it as like a second degree approach, in a sense where in the very competitive world of, say, music production on Fiverr, what makes you stand out? If you are a generalist and you say, oh, I can produce everything, I can do everything, does that really make you stand out? And my take on these things is that 100% of zero is still zero, right? If you try to capture the entire market, you try to do everything, you try to be I can do everything type of thing, then it's very difficult to stand out. And capturing a captive audience of 5 in a very, very niche market sometimes can be a lot more effective and efficient because that allows you to find that sustainability. You go from there, right? So what I specifically do on Fiverr is helping people write bios and helping people create what we call a media kit or EPK, which is very, very common in the industry that I used to come from, which is entertainment. So MCs, comedians, performers, musicians, everybody needs an EPK or media kit, which is sort of like a resume for entertainers, which is a 1-page or 2-page nicely designed document that perfectly summarizes what you do. How can I take all these few thousand words that these people send me and condense them into a one nicely designed 1-page that communicates their value to people? Yeah, so what I'm selling on the surface is this PDF document known as a media kit. But the bottom line, the underlying thing that makes my service slightly different from other people, even though it's under the design category, is that the USP is learning what to put in and what not to put in. That's the actual service.
Because the niche is music, which you are familiar with, you know how to help them sell.
Something like that.
And if you can get a gig, they will find this investment in getting you to do that thing worthwhile.
Yeah, something like that. Even though the service that I'm actually providing on Fiverr is designing media kits under the design niche, what I'm actually doing is helping people communicate their value. That's the real service. And amongst the sea of things I do, what is the actual reason that people keep coming back to hire me? Is it because I'm actually good at what I do? Surely, like, there are a bunch of billions of people, but they know I give my 110% every time I work with them. But every business, every side hustle has its own challenge lah. I still think the bottom line is that if your motivation is to generate revenue, it is very, very not sustainable because money as a driving factor can only get you that far, in my opinion. There needs to be some kind of underlying reason or passion for why you're doing what you're doing to keep you from burning out, to keep you from, to motivate you to wake up at 5:30 a.m. every day and go for it, to live your life. I think that is the fundamentals of it. So like to anybody that is looking to create somewhat of a passive income side hustle and things like that, I think find out what you like to do and to try to find a balance between doing that and building some form of revenue for yourself lah.
We can always change our goals along the way because, life throws us curveballs. And at the start, I also hear that money was a bigger motivator. Everybody might feel the same. If you have bills to pay, you might be motivated. But to sustain a side hustle, then comes the passion part. Very important, really.
Yeah.
So good sharing today, JJ. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you for sharing.
And if you have questions, leave it for us. JJ can hopefully answer some of them for you in the comment sections. And together, we'll see you in the next episode.